Alright, I'm still playing catch up and I still have the Astrid War wound, so just a heads up. And finally talking about Fans Hobbies Meg Tyranno. I know, not a new figure, but when has that ever stopped me? And I gotta say, as someone who is not really I have no connection to Armada Megatron, surprise surprise for anyone who's familiar with this channel, but yeah, I have no connection to it, I have no nostalgia for it. But I got this figure because I've kind of been collecting Megatrons. Not thoroughly, but you know, if I see a Megatron figure that looks cool, I'll usually get it. That's why I have this little guy, which I plan to talk about at some point in the future. This guy's a lot of fun. And so I got Meg Tyranno because it's Fans Hobby. Fans Hobby does really fun stuff. This figure looks really cool, and I've been hearing that it's a lot of fun, so I decided, what the heck, I'm gonna get it. And I got it. And yeah, I really, really like this. And this thing is large. It is very large. We'll see more when I pull out the stuff for size comparisons, but this is a very big tank that does not do a great job of hiding the robot underneath, but that's okay. It's still a lot of fun. You can hear a lot of things rattling around inside this thing because it's a Fans Hobby figure, so it comes loaded with stuff, which we'll see in a minute. But yeah, this is very cool. I like the kind of dull green that they used, along with these weirdly bright hits of orange and yellow and some darker purples and stuff. It's such a weird color clash of a design, but that's kind of the whole point, you know, because Armada Megatron is this weird green and orange and purple nonsense. And it works really well here, and there's a lot of detail that they painted in or tampographed over. Just like little bits along the sides, here and along the back they even did some silver, and more along the sides and on the treads, and even like the bits between the wheels on the treads. And around front there's a little bit of silver there too, the tip of the barrels in this gunmetal-y color. Lots of details painted in or tampographed or separated out in some way or another up here, and it's just a lot of stuff. And it does look really cool. And he also has the weird little mandibles sticking out of the front, though they do a better job of hiding the robot head here than the original Armada Megatron, because there are these panels that kind of cover things up, so you just get the little spike sticking out rather than an entire robot head. Now, before going into the gimmicks of this guy, because he's loaded with gimmicks, I do want to point out the treads, which are actually rubber treads that move. And unlike their, well, it's Double Evil, their Overlord, these treads are actually pretty nice. They're not as tight and snug against the wheels as Double Evil's treads are, so these actually move quite well. And when you put him down and push him, like, it's not, you know, he's not going to roll freely. Like, you're not going to push him and he's just going to roll on his own, but those treads move, which is pretty darn cool. Okay, now for the stuff that this guy comes with, because there's so much. I'm going to start in the back here and open up these doors so we can get out his Minicon. Yes, he comes with a fully functioning Minicon. It's their version of Leader 1. I don't know what this thing is called, but you can also see on the inside there, they painted more details in here and along here, which we'll see in more detail when we do like the transformation stuff, and some rather inappropriately placed hands. Talk more about that later. But I like that you can just store the Minicon back here. And put the big guy off to the side so we can look at the little guy briefly. And yes, Leader 1, whatever this is, it's just a little car. It's a little awkward looking, but it's a Minicon, so I can't really fault it for that. You know, these things are tiny, and their whole thing is that, you know, they're just kind of basic. But for what this guy is, he is pretty cool. They did a decent amount of detailing on the front, the windows, the grille, and the lights. And he holds together really solidly. And there is a trick to it. These bits here actually click in. So when you pull them out, they kind of click out. And things won't line up quite right unless you click it back in. But when it's clicked in, it's in. This guy is nice and solid, so I really appreciate that. And he rolls pretty decently. Yeah. And, of course, he's got Minicon, peg, port, whatever you want to call it, because Meg Tyranno is covered in potential Minicon pegs. You actually flip them out, which I think this is kind of cool. I like that you don't have to have them out. You can just flip them out when you want them. But yeah, he pegs in and holds in place. Peg in here. So you can have him on the side of the tank if you want. And I just think that's neat. I like that you have those ports and pegs, but you can tuck them away if you don't want them. Now, for the stuff that he does, there's so much. This bit up here can unfold to create a ramp, and you can have Minicons on the ramp, though this guy does not quite fit. He's a little too wide. But you can fold out the ramp. This door here can fold out, and there's a little bit in here that you probably heard rattling around. So this can come out, and this forms a little claw arm that you can open up, unpeg, and it even opens up. And then this can peg into the port next to the Minicon thing, so you can have this little rotatey claw arm. Swinging this around. There's also this bit that can flip open, and there's another thing in here that can toss out. And now for this we can just close that back up. But here we've got this switch here, you flip that along its little track. If it wants to move, there we go. And there we go. That gives us a gun, and the reason we have this gun is because there are these slots back here, and these tabs on this piece here. You can plug this in, and then angle this up, and then back here there is a little targeting reticle thing that you can flip up, and some little blast guard panels that can flip out, and that can give you a kind of turret gun emplacement thing. So there is all of that. But there is even more around back here. This flips out, and all this stuff is designed to kind of mimic stuff that you could do with the original Armada toy, but like with a third-party over-the-top kind of premiumness, which is also silly because it's all just toy stuff. But anyway, this folds out, this folds out, this swings out all the way, and now you have this little platform that the way it works is there's a little switch here that when you push it, this bit here pops out. So you put a little Minicon here and hit the button, and it launches the Minicon, which is so silly, but it's neat. I like it. And finally, this side, you pull this out, and there's this little accordioned up stuff, so you can pull that out all the way, and that gives you a little spot to do like a capture for other Minicons, so you can capture them and carry them along that way. And then of course you've got the little thing on the back that you can open up to store more Minicons. So this guy is ridiculous. There are so many little compartments and things that can open up and do other things, and it's ridiculous and I love it. Now let me close all this up again. Almost done with the gimmicks, but not quite. There is actually a little bit more. There's this little button up here. If you pull that in a little bit, it makes that spring open, and then this can lift open, and then you can flip out. There's a little handle here that you can flip out, and that makes a little seat with handle for the Minicon, and this works as a missile launcher. And I am not going to launch these missiles, but there is, or I'm not going to launch them, like actually launch them. There's a button here, and if you push that button, these will spring out, and they've got quite a little kick to them. But you got these tiny little missile things, and yeah, you can fire missiles. And you can have Leader 1, or whatever his name is, sit here. I think it's a little bit too awkward to really bother with, but it's a thing you can do. And now all that is tucked away. As you can see, the tank turret can rotate, so you've got that going on. It can also go up and down. probably have more of this on camera. You can go up and down, and then there's this little crank back here that when you turn the crank, it makes the turret light up. But what's cool about that too is, if you look, it makes the turret kind of go in and out, and it lights up when it gets to a certain point, and then shuts off again. It's a cool little gimmick. It's awkward to use because it's not super smooth, but it is cool. And that, I think, is everything that Meg Tyranno's tank mode does. There's a lot to this thing. It's like a playset. And it is very large, as I've said. I'm gonna just plonk his Minicon up there, because, oh boy. Here he is with some mainline size comparisons, and yeah, this thing is huge. Not Double Evil huge, but huge. And just for the heck of it, in case anyone was curious, here's how he scales with a Legends or Legions scale tank Megatron. Also how his Minicon scales. So the Minicon is still smaller than this, but not too far off the mark. And also this guy does more than this guy, so that's pretty impressive. And there we've got one more tank comparison for you. Alright, so we are going to start with Leader 1, again, whatever this guy's called. So to transform him into his robot mode, I'm going to just straighten these barrels out temporarily, and you can just have them up like this if you want to have it be more like an artillery truck, or bring them down so that they're more facing a little forward. I prefer this, but you got options. Anyway, I want to pull this out, and it will click out, and it actually tabs in here and in part of the leg here. There's part of it tabs in really well, actually. There's a little slot right there, and there's this tab at an angle that pegs in there, so that keeps it nice and solid. So that unpegs that. Click this out as well. That's not clicked out all the way. Come on. There we go. Click it out all the way. You want this thing touching the wheel. I actually don't think this is clicked out all the way. Okay. So with all those clicked out, you can straighten out the legs, fold these guns all the way back into the legs to make kind of heels. For the heck of it, bring out the arms, because we're here, so pull those out, like so. This bit will flip backwards and can rotate the head around. You don't have to rotate the head to go into the vehicle mode, but I prefer to do it because it just hides the head. And here we have Leader 1, or whatever this particular third-party figure's name is, in robot mode, and that's not bad, actually. The weird little wheel cape things are a bit much, but like this is, from what I understand, accurate to the original figure, so I understand why they kept it. It would have been cool if these could like hinge up or around or just tuck in somehow a little bit better, but it's fine. This guy is pretty simple and basic, but also kind of cool. Some nice molding on him. Doesn't have a lot of paint in robot mode, aside from just the yellow that they put on the visor, but it's cool. It looks neat. It has an inappropriately placed peg hole, which is fine. It was part of the design. And this guy's actually pretty well articulated for the size. It's got a ball-jointed neck, so that works really well. The arms can go all the way around and actually in and out a little bit. No bicep swivel, but you can hinge the shoulder forward around this bit, so if you wanted this facing back like that, you could, or angled like that, you could, so you got choices. And then, as you saw, also has elbows, which is about 90 degrees. That's pretty good. No waist swivel, but you do get an ab crunch, which is wild. The hips can go forward and back and out a little bit, but that's about it. You also kind of get pseudo thigh swivel because of the ball joint in the hip, and then you can bend the knee 90 degrees, or if you get this thing out of the way, you can bend it way more than 90 degrees. So, pretty decently posable for a little guy. And, well, actually, let's just do size comparisons for the Minicon real quick, because we've got another mode to get him into in preparation for Meg Tyranno's robot mode. As I said, this fellow is quite tiny. He barely comes up to a Deluxe's knee. And compared to a Legends or Legion or whatever figure, he is also still relatively tiny, though it is pretty impressive how, despite him being much smaller than him, he is also much more complex and has more articulation. I mean, also, this is a fancy third-party accessory figure. This is a standalone, like, what, $5 toy back in the day, so not exactly a fair comparison. Still love this little thing, though. And, let's back out here a bit. Okay, there we go. And here he is with one more of our kind of standard-ish size comparison. So yeah, tiny little guy. Tiny little guy. Nice and redundant. Okay. Now, we got one more mode to turn this guy into, so we're going to straighten out the arms and put them back into their little wheel things. And because I want to, I'm going to rotate the head around. Again, not necessary, but it hides the face. Flip this back up, and then straighten out these barrels, put all of that together, and now instead of curling things up, we're going to push all this back together and keep the legs straight. And there's actually tabs here that will go into that slot that was angled before for the vehicle mode. So I want to get that in and then click this back, make sure it goes into the spot up there. Come on. There we go. Make sure that's clicked in, and then get the leg lined up. This is not on camera, I'm sorry. Get that pegged in, and then same deal here. Make sure that's clicked in all the way. And just find it easier to line up the tabs on the legs after getting all of this clicked in. So with all of that clicked and pegged into place, now he's just a plank with guns on the end, and you can just flip out, flip out, flip out this little peg, and that turns him into a gun for Meg Tyranno. So now he is officially an accessory. That off to the side, and bring this gigantic thing in. You're definitely going to need to readjust because there is a lot on this guy, and he's going to get pretty big. So where to begin? To start, I'm going to work on the front section here. So first off, I'm going to pull up on the tank turret section, because there is a joint for that. It actually telescopes up. And by pulling it up, it allows you to not only rotate, but there's a swing joint. So you can swing it to one side, and that makes it much easier to get it out of the way of everything else. So with that done, I'm going to pull these two bits apart. So peg in kind of here and primarily here. So unpeg that. And unpeg that, and we're on our way. So first, I have to start folding up panels. So this panel comes up, and then this little end panel folds in, and this will just fold up all the way. This panel in here will fold in and tuck up behind here. Same deal on this side. That comes up, that curls in, and then this goes in. And now we can separate these bits up here and flip these panels up, and they will actually, they tab together and also tab in to these other panels. So flip those up, get them out of the way. And now these bits, they're on a kind of a double hinge here. So you want to angle those up and back. And now you can fold this. You can fold this up, so you can fold this in, and it's a little tricky to get it past the head, but if you angle it right, you can kind of swing it around, fold this down, fold that in, and that completes the shoulder section. So again, angle it back, bring this down and swing this around and set up all that. And lastly, for the tread bits here, you want to take this gray bit and flip it up. It's a locking switch, because with this locked, everything kind of holds together. When you switch this up and unlock it, you can now compress the treads further in here. So up and push that in. And that is most of the upper body done. Now we can start working on the lower bodies. So actually, I'm going to rotate these back down. Just get those out of the way, because we want to have room up here for this to swing over so that we can do stuff here. So with the thing out of the way, this panel here will flip up and sit like that. This will come up and it'll kind of flex slightly around this bit. It's fine. I don't think you really ought to worry about it. That comes up, and then this folds in like that. And now I'll just do the other side as well. So fold this up and in, fold this out, and you can see how it's like kind of flexing around this. But again, no big deal. That, and there we go. So now we've got that all folded out. Oh, this is hard to do because this guy is big and heavy. You want to open these doors as though we were extracting the Minicon before. And split these sections down the middle. It splits up here and on the bottom. So untab that. And now these can go up. And you can see a little bit more in there, and you can also see a little bit more what I was talking about with the incredibly inappropriate hand placement. Anyone who's familiar with early 2000s internet knows exactly what this looks like. Anyone else, I'm not going to say it because you'll Google it, and I don't want you Googling that. Anyway, so first thing, I'm going to take this section and bring it out, and it'll rotate from here. So bring that out a bit, and you can also see all the really nice detail that they've like tampographed up here and painted here. It's just so much little detail on this guy, and even more painted bits on the inside here. So now with that done, this whole thing will fold in and collapse together like that, and then this will fold up, and then this entire panel section will fold down and kind of peg into place, and that compresses all of that together, so that gets rid of most of those panels. Now we can take this section, bring it up a little bit, and rotate it around to get it out of the way. This will come down and it kind of tabs into place. Yeah, so it's not going to go anywhere. And that completes a shin, and then this can straighten out all the way, and then this can come down. But before you bring this down, you're going to want to unpeg the forearms from the butt, just so that you've got room, because there's that slot there and these tabs here, and that's where they peg in. And just moving this will pull that out of place anyway, so just better to get them out of the way. So that out of the way, we can bring the leg in a bit, and we can finish up the foot. So I'm going to fold this section down, like so. Fold this little bit down a little bit. I'm going to fold this bit down just a little bit to give us a little more room so that we can pull this section out, flip it all the way up and around, and then flip that out completely. And now we've got an entire leg. And same exact deal on this side. Okay, we're almost done. Now I want to take these panels here, and actually I'm going to bring these arms the rest of the way out just to get them out of the way. I'm going to take these panels here, and they kind of peg into the rib section here. So I'm going to bring those out and down. So that will free up the entire upper body section, and it will allow you to rotate the waist section around 180 degrees. This thing can just kind of hinge back down and around to get it out of the way again. Now we can move these bits back as they were before, because this, yeah, we're not going to have to worry about the tank turret anymore. So with those moved out of the way, you can kind of see there's a little gray joint inside the torso that's connected to the arms. You want to pull the arms out, which will extend that gray joint. And with that extended, you can swing this around, and the arm will clip in right here. So there's one arm in place, and then the same deal here. Just extend that out, swing it around, and clip it in. There we go. Now, the torso is slid forward. It's necessary for the transformation. You want to slide it back. So it's just the upper body here. So you push this back, and you can see how it slides back a little bit. And that lines everything up a little better. Now, take this panel and straighten out these little bits on the end. Bring this down and push it up. It just moves on this little slider here, so you push that up, and then this will swing in and peg into the chest, and we'll cover up those joints and just kind of fill all of that in. And rotate the arms, bring them down. The shoulder pads will pull out. They don't lock into place, but they do friction pretty well. For the hands, you just straighten out the thumb, straighten out the fingers, and then there's this extra joint here that you fold in, and that's what you have to, like, you use that to get the hands more out of the way for the tank mode. So same deal here, straighten out the fingers and rotate that very specific palm joint in. So you've got that going on, and that's pretty much it. We can do various things with the tank turret, but I'm just gonna push it in, leave it kind of off to the side for now. But we can do more with it later. And there we have Meg Tyranno in robot mode, looking very much like Armada Megatron for obvious, I would hope, reasons. And this guy is very cool. I really like the color here. It's sort of like more classic Armada Megatron colors with the green and the purple and now silver and like the orange and stuff, but the colors are a little bit more muted, which in my mind, like, it still hits the right notes, but because the colors aren't quite as bright, it's a little bit easier to take them seriously, if that makes sense. It's also really cool just how much of the tank disappears in this mode, because so much of it was panels, but those panels fold up really well. And they were covering a lot in terms of like arms and legs and midsection and stuff, so you basically just got the shins and the shoulders as details that we saw in vehicle mode. And then the turret on the back, but that's like on the back. So it's a lot of new stuff that's revealed, which is really cool. There's a lot of detailing here, most of which we did see. Like pretty much all the detail on this shin is stuff that we saw in the tank mode. The feet come together really nicely. I wasn't initially sold on the clawed toes, and I still think I would have preferred the more like robot-style cubey feet that they used for the original Armada Megatron toy, but these have grown on me. They don't bother me like I thought they would have when I first saw videos and photos and whatnot. There's some nice molded detail and painted detail in the thighs and also in the waist section. There's just a lot of detail here. One thing that is unfortunate about the design of this, the hip joints are identical. Like, they didn't mirror the hip joints. This hip joint is the exact same as this hip joint, so you've got a screw facing forward on one side. You don't really see it with the hip skirts down, but it is kind of unfortunate, and I did try. You'd think maybe you can just rotate this around and, like, you know, kind of flip the leg forward, pull the leg back, rotate the thigh, and arrange it so that that screw hole is facing backwards. It doesn't work, because the way, like, essentially the cut for the joint is deeper on this side than it is up here. So if you rotate it around, you can hide the screw hole, but the leg can only, like, come down that far if you do that, so you really do need to leave it like this. And it's a shame, but it's not a huge deal. Anyway, still got lots of nice detail going through the rest of the torso, and it's like, it's simplistic and kind of geometric, but I really like it. It's cool. The shoulder detailing is nice, and again, you can see the the duplicated parts with the shoulders, because you've got this shoulder here is fine, and then this one's got screw holes facing forward. Would have been cool if they'd mirrored it, but hey, if it keeps costs down, I guess it's worth it. So I feel like for what you get, this guy is actually a pretty darn good price. Now for the arms, he's got some pretty decent looking arms. Not a lot in terms of paint on the arms specifically, except like the forearm and the little flip out blades, because of course they stuffed the robot mode with gimmicks too. But the detailing is nice. I also really like that silver on the shoulder pads. I like a lot of the detailing on this guy. And the shoulder treads are the same that we saw before. They are the treads from the tank on his shoulders. I do understand why some people are a little bit put off by the fact that the treads hover above his shoulders rather than being attached to his shoulders. Personally, it doesn't bother me at all, but I get why that may bother some folks. But I also feel like he does enough different compared to the original Armada toy that it's more of like an homage or celebration of that toy than like them directly trying to recreate it, you know? As far as Kibble goes, he's got the tank turret on his back and the big shoulder pod tank treads, and like that's kind of it. It's just a really clever design. It's a simple transformation that accomplishes a lot and covers a lot with panels. Now the head is, I think it's pretty close to Armada Megatron. I believe the little head spikes are, I don't know if that's the quote right or quote wrong shape or not. I prefer the more angular horns. He does come with alternate horns that are more curved, but I just like the more angular ones. I feel like the aesthetic on this guy is a little bit out of the norm for Armada Megatron, and I feel like keeping it that way works. But he's got the grumpy purple Megatron face. I think he also comes with an alternate face or two. I don't remember. I'll post pictures if I can, if I can find them. But they're tucked away in his box, and I'm not going to get the box right now. Also, I really like that they picked out some details in this silvery color around the head, and of course the orange stripes on the horns, those are cool. And he comes with a light-up gimmick, so you push the button on top of his head and his eyes glow, and it's very cool. I like that. It's not super bright, but it's plenty effective. Now for articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so it can wiggle back and forth and up and down bits, and of course rotate left and right. You can move these pods in and out of the way as you see fit. The shoulders go forward and back, and could do a 360 except for these bits up here. You can go all the way out with the arms. If you wanted to, you could disconnect the shoulders and swing forward a bit, but then they crash into the chest thing. But like, that gives you a little bit of butterfly motion. You get bicep swivel, double jointed elbows that can bend all the way up. And then you also get wrist swivels. The thumb is on a ball joint at the base. As for the fingers, each finger is individually articulated, and you've got a knuckle joint and then a secondary joint. You only get 2 joints per finger, but I feel like that's enough. There we go. So that can curl in like that. And each finger has the same amount of articulation, and then this joint too can move back, but it's more for transformation. You also get a waist rotation and an ab crunch. It's not great, but it gets the job done. I think it's enough. And you can move the hip skirts out of the way to move the legs, and the legs can go forward a bit past 90. It's awkward and difficult. Keep having to move the turret out of the way. You can go back, not quite to 90 because of the shape of the butt. Kind of bangs into stuff. Can go out because of the transformation well past 90. It can actually go a little further than this. The arm's just getting in the way. You can bend it in here if you want, though with all the panels closed up, it's not that far, and I also wouldn't recommend it. Get a thigh swivel. You get a 90-degree knee with some nicely revealed detail too on that knee joint. It's so awkward. But yeah, you get some nicely revealed detail, which is also pretty cool considering there's that swing joint in there. So this kind of nub sits into that carved section. Just the idea that it's like designed to swing around that is pretty cool. And then for the foot, you get ankle tilt, you get forward and backward tilt, and you get tilt on the this bit here for any reason you might want. You can waggle the toes down if you want. So yeah, he is pretty decently posable. And now we can talk about his various gimmicks. So each forearm has a little fold-out knife, which is sort of homaging his original toys flip-out switchblade thing, which is not spring-loaded, but it's still cool. I like that it's there. And for the tank turret. Okay, so I'm going to pull this all out so that we can push this down and rotate all of this around, like so. Rotate and push this back into place. It'll go back into place. You use that ab crunch to rotate the waist around. Oh, this is so awkward. But you can move that flap out of the way, and you can do the waha. That's a lot of weight in front there, but yes, you can do the awkward Megatron belly cannon thing, and I don't like this, so I don't use it, but it's an option. And there's the more regular thing where if you push the turret back in, you can angle this, so you can do the turret kind of facing forward from his back, like curling around his back, which I always thought that was a pretty cool design. So that's what I go with. But in addition to that, you also have this bit here where you've got a handle that can come out and rotate, because that allows you to position the hand so that it's gripping the tank turret. And that just looks cool. I like that. So now Megatron can grip the barrel of the tank that is the barrel of the tank turret that's just kind of sticking out from around his back. That's really cool. And of course, we've got his Minicon. So just going to adjust some things here, and it will go into his hand, much like what happens with the accessories on Double Evil and some Make Toy stuff. There's this kind of notch on the handle and a channel in the fist, or in the palm. So you just line that up and slide it in place, and with that slid in place, even if the hand is open, that's not going anywhere. So you get that in place, close the fingers around it, and now he's got a robot man for a gun, and this is excessive and ridiculous, and I absolutely love it. Which thing is he going to shoot you with? I don't know. It's his choice. So, there is all of that. And, okay, I think I'm going to move him over here, because it'll just be easier for the size comparisons. And yet I still have to readjust. Alright, so here we have Meg Tyranno, compared to an assortment of mainline figures, and yeah, he's very tall. Here he is with another tank Megatron. Just in case you were curious. You have no idea how far back I've had to pull the camera for this. But yeah, here he is with Double Evil. This is nowhere close to the size of Double Evil. And yeah, he is just a large, large fellow. And that is going to do it. Bring this back in for Fans Hobbies Meg Tyranno. Are his eyes still on? Oh, yeah, that... That LED has gotten dim. Might need to get some fresh batteries in there at some point. But yes, Meg Tyranno is extremely cool. And I say this as someone who, as I said before, does not really care about Armada Megatron at all. I just think this guy is neat. He's a really fun toy. It's a toy, but it also manages to work as like a high-end collectible. So it's like a very playable high-end collectible. Manages to tick both of those boxes, where it's like a really cool shelf piece that isn't exactly cheap, but also is just a fun thing to play with. Like he's a play set. He's a play set that has a tank mode and a cool robot mode and can do lots of different things and just looks really neat. I think I've said all I can about Meg Tyranno here, so what do you all think of this guy? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and remember, it's just toys, so let's have fun with it.